In this video, we're going to check out the subwoofer output settings on your new Pioneer NEX in-dash receiver when your system is set up in its standard mode. Please note, this video applies to the Pioneer DMH-WT 8600 NEX, the DMH-WT 7600 NEX and 76 NEX, the DMH-WC 6600 NEX, and the DMH-W 4660 NEX and 4600 NEX. So let's set up the subwoofer output on this receiver, and you can see I'm on the Sirius XM source right now, but this could be any music source, it doesn't matter which one. And I'll choose the gears up here, and under the gears, let's come down to the speaker, and that's our sound settings. So under the speaker, let's scroll along here until we find subwoofer, but you can see subwoofer is switched off, and if we go down here a little further, we can see the subwoofer settings are grayed out, we can't get to them. So let's go back up here to the subwoofer. Let's switch subwoofer on and scroll down a little further here, and you can see now that the subwoofer settings now become available to us, and we'll select that. So there's a lot of information on this subwoofer screen here, and here you can see we have the crossover for the subwoofer. If we hit this arrow over, we can move to the crossover for the front outputs and for the rear outputs, and back to the front and back to the subwoofer output. That's the one we're interested in for this video. The first thing we'll go with here is the low pass filter, or the crossover for the subwoofer. Right now you can see it's set to 80 Hertz, and on this graph we can adjust the crossover point for the subwoofer output. So we can drag this back here, and we can set that crossover point, the low pass filter, all the way down to 25 Hertz, which is very low. And we can move it all the way up to 250 Hertz, which is very high. So what you're deciding here is what frequencies are going to be played back by your subwoofer. In most cases, you want your subwoofer to only play back lower frequencies. So we can choose from a lot of different low frequencies. We can choose from 25. There's 31.5. 40 Hertz, 50 Hertz, 63 Hertz, 80 Hertz, 100 Hertz, 125, 160, 200 Hertz, 250 Hertz. On any of those crossover points, we can choose a slope as well. So I'm going to change this thing back to, let's say, 80 Hertz for right now. There's 63, there's 80, and let's adjust the slope now. With the slope, I can choose between 6 decibels per octave and all the way down to 36 decibels per octave. So the slope is how quickly the sound rolls off, or the volume of the subwoofer rolls off. So everything that is above our crossover point, right now our crossover point is 80 Hertz, everything above that is going to be played more quietly. And here is our slope set at 6 decibels per octave, and that means 1 octave higher than 80 Hertz, the sound from the subwoofer will be 6 decibels less. Now that's a very shallow slope. We can make it a little steeper if we want. There's 12 decibels per octave. There's 18 decibels per octave. There's 24 decibels per octave. 30 decibels per octave, and as steep as 36 decibels per octave. So any of those settings for the slope will work great for you. There's 18 decibels per octave, and what that means is my subwoofer is going to play all the frequencies below 80 Hertz, and above 80 Hertz, the volume of my subwoofer is going to roll off at 18 decibels per octave. So 1 octave higher would be 160 Hertz. The volume coming from that subwoofer will be 18 decibels less than it is at 80 Hertz. We also have an adjustment to the phase, and right now you can see our phase is in normal phase. We can also switch it to reverse phase. Be sure to check both of these phase settings in your particular vehicle. One of them might sound significantly better than the other, and there's no problem. You're not going to hurt the in-dash receiver switching the phase from normal to reverse. Do the one that works best for you in your particular vehicle. And the LPF on or off here, that is switching the subwoofer output off. We want the LPF on in this particular setup. Once you're done making your subwoofer adjustments here, let's go back. Now that's set up my crossover and my slope, but that doesn't change the output of my subwoofer. To change the output of my subwoofer, I got to go back up to my speaker level up here. Let's select speaker level. And under speaker level, you can see that we have an individual speaker output or an individual volume control for each speaker in the system. And of course, you know, we said at the beginning of this video that this system is set up in standard mode. And standard mode means front outputs, rear outputs, and a subwoofer output. So here are the independent volume controls for my front, right, and left outputs, my rear, right, and left outputs. Oops. And my subwoofer output right here. So right here is the control that I can use to make my subwoofer a little bit quieter as compared to the other speakers in the system, or a little louder as compared to the other speakers in the system. I strongly recommend for you to keep these settings at 0 or lower for best sound quality in your system. All right, once I'm done making my adjustments to the subwoofer output, I'm going to go back up here, and there's a couple of other settings that we should take a look at. Let's scroll down here to our dynamic bass enhancer system. Here you can see the dynamic bass enhancer is set to its high setting. We can choose to set this off, low, or high, whatever one works best for you. And this can dramatically affect the sound that you hear inside your system, particularly among the lower frequencies. Choose the setting that works best for you. Let's go back up. And one more setting we want to take a look at here is the rear speaker output. You can see right now, rear speaker output is grayed out. So what this means is the Pioneer NEX receivers are very capable of operating a small subwoofer on the speaker level output. So we need to set that up as subwoofer if we want to run a small subwoofer from the speaker level outputs. But you can see that's grayed out. How do we get there? We're just going to touch the home button out here. And let's choose to switch the system off. That switches the source off. Let's go back into the settings now and back into my speaker settings, my audio settings. And you can see everything is grayed out now unless I scroll down to the bottom where rear speaker output is set to rear. I can also switch rear speaker output to subwoofer. With this setting, I can run a small subwoofer on the rear speaker outputs of the in-dash receiver. For right now, I'm going to choose to set my rear speaker output to full range, or the rear setting. When I'm done making those adjustments, I can hit the X to escape. Now, there's one more setting that I want to check out for the subwoofer that makes it very easy to use the system, and that is your shortcuts. So right now the system is switched off. Let's choose a source. And we have Sirius XM up and playing, but this could be any source. I'm going to touch the gears. And under the gears, you can see we go directly to our favorites. All right, so the favorites, we have nothing registered in the favorites, but this is the shortcut to get to your favorite settings. So I'm going to go to my audio settings, and under my audio settings, I want to get to speaker level. That's how I can adjust my subwoofer output in the system. So let's take a gold star. We'll light up the gold star beside speaker level there. And maybe I like to also make some adjustments to the dynamic bass enhancer. We'll light up that star there. And I'm going to hit the X to escape. Now, I'm listening to some music. If I want to make an adjustment to the subwoofer output, I can touch the gears. That takes me directly to my favorites. And look, there's speaker level on my list right at the top. Quick access to change that subwoofer output. When you're done making your adjustments here, you can always hit the X to escape.